My final project for this Workstation and Server course was I built a quote library database using LampStack. Hi, my name is Brennan, and my final project for this Workstation and Server course was to build a quote library database. The goals were to have a place to store quotes, which was user-friendly and organized. The need for this came that I enjoy quotes or writing down quotes when I'm reading either a good piece of literature, a history book, as that is one of my interests, historical quotes, events, authors, classical, political theories, and I want to have an ability to go back and find those quotes. Currently, they're just shoved in a drawer in my room on random loose leaf paper that I have near me while I'm reading, or they're just underlined if I own the book. So I wanted to create a system where I'd be able to have all my quotes and its information easily accessible on a web server that I could pull up anywhere and be able to search for a quote, add a quote, and so on. I use LampStack to be able to do this, which is Linux, Apache, MariaDB, or MySQL. I use MariaDB for this project, and PHP code. For my Linux, I use Amazon's Lightsail. It's really user-friendly, it's affordable, and centralized. The cost for this whole project using it on Amazon Lightsail has been 79 cents a month, which I will continue to pay for and use as it's a really successful project and helps with the need that I had for and hit all my goals. So to do that, I logged into Amazon Lightsail. I logged under the root with the account I had set up for, and I created an instance. In the screenshot, if you go to the left, you'll see that it says instances, containers, databases, and so on. So I created an instance, and this instance I used Linux and selected OS only. From there, I choose Ubuntu 2. I didn't, which was the name. I didn't have any configuration code that I inserted there. I just wanted to start out from scratch. And the IP address was assigned. I didn't configure it to be any different than the IP address it gave me. For Apache, I installed Apache on the instance, so it created a blank screen, and from there I inserted everything from Apache, MariaDB, and PHP. So I installed Apache and allows the use of IP address of instance for easy and affordable access. I did set up a domain, so if I want to purchase a domain for this website in the future, I will be able to, with the domain name being Sydney's quote library.com. But for now, just so it remains of the goal as affordable and easy, I just use the IP address, the public one, that was given with the instance. And so when you go to the IP address without doing the files, it will say the index of and then the two PHP files I used. For MariaDB, I used it as when I was trying to insert and add MySQL to my instance. It didn't work. It preferred, but it like almost wanted me to use MariaDB instead, which debugging that or figuring that out was just going to take more time. And since MariaDB has the same commands and the same kind of allocation as MySQL, I thought if I wanted this to be easy to be recreated and used, might as well just use it. I created a database called Quote Database, and then from there I created a table named Quotes. I added columns, and then I inserted it. In the screenshot there, it's me inserting one of the quotes that I added, which was my first quote, which was Alexander Hamilton. I started off just doing quote text, author, year, and source, and quote ID for the values. The quote ID would be iterated automatically by input. So this quote right here was my first one. So that's going to have an ID of 1. The next quote I inserted would have an ID of 2, and so on. once I had this project done, I did go back and I do have plans to make it a little more developed and specific to allow for more specific qualifications and information to be given, but I'll get more on that at the end of the presentation for what I would do differently. For PHP, I coded 2 files, quotes PHP, which displays all quotes in the database and allows the additions of quote by text by a user. And the process folder 42 PHP is kind of the behind the scenes, which allows for the addition of any quotes that the user might add. So for my demonstration, I am going to show how the website works. So I'll exit the PowerPoint and enter in the IP address. I forgot to mention this with Apache before I add into it. I did add some security measures, which you'll see right here. You need a username and a password just to keep the database secured, because when you add a quote, you can just add a quote from the database right off this website, and obviously you don't want other random users inserting other things or hacking into your database in general, but I wanted this not to be accessible to everyone because I knew it wouldn't be a secure option. So once I enter my password, I'm now allowed to see it. I'll hit the quotes PHP because that's the one that displays everything. The process PHP folder you can select, but it's not going to do anything. But once I select it, it displays my entire quote library, all the quotes I added. In form of ID, you saw on the presentation that this quote was added first. I had to do some rewiring and I just recreated the database because it kind of got messed up. And so this actually was the first quote I entered when I went back and did it. That's why it's organized that way. I didn't want there to be any confusion. So it says the quote, the author, the year, and the source of all of them. As I said, all of them are going to be kind of political science-y, as that's one of my main interests, and I like those quotes. Here's an example of a quote I did during my class presentation, but right down here it says the quote, author, year, source, so we'll just do a demonstration for adding your own quote. The quote can be, this is a demonstration. The author will be me, Cindy Brennan. The year is 2023, and the source is YouTube video. It doesn't really matter. And once we hit add quote, it says quote added to database. You may go back to page, so you just hit the back arrow, and then you see the quote is added. You also, if you go into the instance, into MariaDB, you would be able to edit it and change the words. As you can see, I misspelled video accidentally. I'd be able to go back and change that. Conclusions and takeaways of this project. If I were to do it again, I would add more options, such as remove, instead of just add a quote, I'd allow a user to remove a quote, edit a quote, kind of all the things you'd be able to do on the MariaDB under the instance, just for it to be easily accessible. As one of the issues I had when entering values into the database is just like forgetting to do a semicolon or having a quotation mark in the wrong space and so on, just like typing user errors. And this allows it to be kind of more organized and easier for a user to enter things in the database while also displaying all the information. I'd also probably make it a little more prettier. It was a pretty bland PHP form that you saw on the web server. I'd also probably add more security measures. I talked about what I did with Apache, how you need a username and a password, but that's my only security feature, so I'd go back and add more security features. As I talked about earlier too, I'd probably make it a little more concise. I'd allow you to not only be able to search the quotes, but I'd have it more specific. I'd want you to, the user, which is me, to be able to search certain words, like if I'm trying to find Alexander Hamilton with the quote about man or liberty or whatever it may be, I could just be able to search liberty, and any quotes with the word liberty will come up, as well as be more concise. Like, if I'm obviously, I just read all those quotes, so I know where they are, but if I look back on them in a year, I can be like, oh, why did I pick that quote? What was the context of the time period? Especially if it was from like an author that was talking about a time period, not just like, for example, Machiavelli or Rousseau or Hamilton speaking, because I know those time periods well, but to give some context, the meaning of the quote, the time period, and so on, just so there's more information. And so if I'm going back and trying to kind of remember why I thought that quote was important, I'll have all that information. But this project was really important for me to learn and use, as being able to handle data, especially now with the usage of data that we see businesses and personal usage for, being able to display data in an easy manner. I can also type that IP address on my phone so it's accessible anywhere, which is important when it comes to a lot of things, but especially businesses. You think of needing a certain amount of your employees needing to have easy access to data from about either clients or a product, and having it to be easily organized and displayed right there on a web server that allows them to access it anywhere, whether that be while commuting on a subway or on the bus or a plane or quickly in their office, or in a meeting, is a really important part, which makes business successful. Also, being able to learn this, I think I could create it and replicate it a lot quicker. So if it's needed, if an employer needs this from me, I'm able to wrap it up and get something up for them within a day. Otherwise, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your day.